Awesome. Well, man, I am super excited today. We have a really awesome guest, and we are going to all be getting a serious lesson today, not necessarily on astrophysics or physics, but we have a professor, Leon Eisen. And if you want to just quickly give yourself a background, you got a PhD in physics, but you're really focusing on a lot of healthcare, a lot of investment, startups, and please just share with our audience a little bit about your background. I'm so glad you're here.
Yeah, thank you, Mike. It's amazing to be here. Thanks for the invitation. And yeah, there is a reason why I'm in the healthcare space. First of all, I was a scientist and I did my PhD in quantum optics, quantum electronics, quantum physics, and did my postdoctoral research in quantum computers. And then I left science for the industry. And it happened that I was involved in development of many breakthrough medical devices, like world first hemoglobin meter, non-invasive hemoglobin meter, like world first um pancreas mimic device. So, so it's really attracted me very much. I understood that healthcare, this is what I'm interested in. And maybe I went through all stages of personal and professional development. So I was engineer, I was working like executive, and exactly in the middle of the crisis 2008 2009, somehow I decided to make my own company. Good time, right? And I succeeded to raise $1 million for for my new company. And that time, all of the world was busy with wellness devices. Just Fitbit just started doing some devices, and I decided to do wearable but medical device. So it's a huge challenge because nobody think about it. How you can measure blood oxygen saturation from the wrist? Nobody did succeed for 20 years before to measure on the wrist. Everybody measure on the fingertip, for example. So I decided to make it medical device, and actually we succeeded. So we started this company, and that's after some time we raised millions, many millions of dollars, dozens of millions of dollars, and finally, we succeeded to get FDA clearance to the world first medical device, not wellness medical device on the wrist. It looks like medical device. It doesn't look like a watch. And
Is
today it's not a big deal. It's called Oxytone. Yeah, it's not a big deal. There are many devices, but in any case, you can number devices having FDA clearance just by your fingers. So not a lot. And people use today oxytocin like predicate for blood oxygen saturation measurements at wrist and other devices. So it's a world first FDA cleared device which I invented, wearable device which I invented. And after 10 years of managing this company and bringing this company to success, I left. I step up. So I became executive chairman of the company, and I had a lot of opportunities ahead. So I started my own venture studio because I wanted to continue like entrepreneur, but I didn't want to again to take company and spend another 10 years for development of something. So I decided to create a venture studio. So I invested in my into infrastructure of new company. Then I'm looking for the co-founder, and co-founder lead this company to success. So I just help like a chairman. At the same time, I decided to help startups because it's time to give back. And I entered into dozen of accelerators. So I'm a mentor for example, of H7 Biomed Accelerator in Silicon Valley, in Founder Institute Accelerator Hong Kong, and many others. And at some point, I was invited to join Silicon Valley Venture Capital Fund like a partner, like a venture partner. And this way, suddenly I became venture capitalist. So it was some new experience because before I was on other side of the table. Now I'm on another side of the table. So I have to change my thinking totally and think like investor, not think like a founder. And actually, it's a two different worlds of thinking. at some also I was invited to join World Business Angel Investment Forum. This is like a senator. This is one of the biggest angel investors organization worldwide, and I'm a senator, and we are in about 100 countries worldwide.
So Leon, this is awesome. So can you help me understand where you went from a little more clear where you got your PhD in physics? Were you doing R&D at like how did you make that leap? I think that's really kind of interesting and definitely want to get that leap now. I can totally understand how you were successful as a founder. You did the FDA clearance for med device, and now you're really though it's a totally different world being a VC, with the investment, all that versus a founder, but you're instrumental. I think there's two types of investors. It sounds like those who are operators that were founders or both, and then the money guys, looking at it, de-risking it. But if you could, before we get deep into it, just help us uncover a little bit, because I think that is fascinating because there's so many people that are looking career advice. The dots are not always clear. You were studying physics and now you're in med device, now you're in VC. Can you help us understand where you went from a PhD to getting into med device? That would be great.
Yeah, very, very good question. First of all, I left science because my professor created new company, and he told me, "Are you going to spend another 15 years chasing professorship? Are you going to get a good salary now and to start working like engineer?" So it was quite convincing. So I left it, and it was interesting. And I just, I broken my head, not teeth as well, but head, because I had to think like engineer, not like scientist. Scientist is looking for, and metrics of scientist success is, I see phenomena. Oh, I made another paper. That's amazing, but I don't know. It's not what I was looking for. And like engineer, I had the result immediately. So I could make it by my hand, by my head, and I have result. And this is what really what excited me to have result immediately. But I had to learn all this stuff around what is a tolerance. This thing doesn't happen in science, and how to make engineer. So within 3-4 years, I became quite good engineer. I was working with about 8 companies, maybe at the same time, helped them to develop medical devices. And this is how I get into this stuff. And through this, I get this invention because I understood that actually I have all capabilities to manage something that nobody did before, to measure blood oxygen saturation around the wrist. And technology very unique. We decided to measure it around the ulnar bone. Ulnar bone is here. And nobody did it. Still nobody does it. But this is the best place from medical grade point of view. You cannot get medical grade, real medical grade, from middle of the wrist, because a lot of noises there and a lot of stuff. But we did it medical grade, and this is only place at wrist where you can have accurate data. So this is what moved me into this space. So I had an idea. I decided to chase this idea. I decided to make something work first, and I did it.
That is awesome. I'm looking at my wrist now, like I've never looked at it before, with that little bone there. And I'm looking at the knuckles, which is probably not the best because you have a wrist where you can actually adhere stuff to. But I imagine you could do it on different spots. It's just that is the ideal spot, right on that little bone. Fascinating.
And it is known for the last 50 years that the best measurement place, in the forehead here because of bone. Bone is a natural light guide, a natural reflector, more than 90% reflection. So if you know how to build a sensor around the ulnar bone, you can use ulnar bone, spherical shape. Use it to accelerate the signal and to remove any noise out of this. Yeah,
right there.
Exactly. Yes,
Cool.
Exactly. So
that's awesome.
So it's a natural lens.
I love this. So tell me, what has been the most like blown, like how, like when it comes to healthcare, and I know you're in Israel, you guys are like the tech capital of the world. I don't care what Silicon Valley says. Come on, we're going to give you guys the tech capital of the world. Um, so much technology that's come out of Israel. I love it. But tell me, what have you been blown away with by healthcare that doesn't make sense, or makes it, like what are some takeaways that you've learned in your journey with healthcare breakthrough with products and technology?
First of all, I think I can take it from two totally opposite directions, like my quantum business thinking teaches. We'll talk about it later. So from one side, I like healthcare because it's really you have some results. You help people, and people like it, and this is where you really see some result of what you're doing. You can say, okay, I did something, no, but I did before, but these help a lot of people, thousands of people to survive. That's amazing. From other side, I met when I got into the healthcare, maybe it was beginning of digital health, and it was quite easy to build relationships with hospitals. For example, my company was one of the first 13 companies with startup health. You know, startup health.
Mm-hmm.
So
Cool.
it was the first 13 companies. My company was in the first cohort of Texas Medical Center Accelerator in 2013-14, together with Redox and other very famous companies. So it was quite easy because it wasn't a crowded market, not a lot of digital health companies and not a lot of wearable companies, and also we were accepted, we were welcome to any new accelerators and hospitals. Today's everything is totally different. Today, so many healthcare companies that I think innovation department of healthcare systems, they became filters, not helpers to startups. They became filters from the noise that coming to them every day. And this totally changed behavior of healthcare space. Today, very difficult to make business there. I don't know what do you need to have to get into medical system for test. A lot of money they ask for before they pay you, or they did it for you for free. And today, you should pay just, I don't know, a lot of money to make just test of your device there. So I think the landscape is totally different for the last 10 years. And after the COVID specifically, I see just a lot of difference. So
You
and also what's important, some
Leon, you
yeah.
remind me of what a guest said a few shows ago, just how when he worked at a high level at a health system sort of payer provider, and they were like IP, they were like all the IP, all the intellectual, even with it was off hours on. I mean, it was just really unfortunate. It sounds like those big time companies, technology companies, where they want to own everything. They want to own every thought. And that's a health system. Who would have thought a not-for-profit would be operating like that? I'll stop there.
It's not only health system, it's everywhere because demand, there is a demand over supply.
Mm-hmm.
Demand, I mean demand from startups, and supply is not so big. So it's everywhere. As you know, for the last PitchBook report, demand over supply for the money, for example, is about 3 times. Never happened something like this. So I think startups struggle in every industry today, except AI. But I don't know when it will finish because it will get saturated at some point and bubble will blow. But actually, in healthcare today, I don't know. I wouldn't start healthcare company today. I can tell you.
You sound like the guy, forgive me, what's his name? The founder of NVIDIA. He's so great when he so candidly says, "Oh, this is awful. I'd never do this again." And he says
Yes, exactly.
I love he has such probably some quantum principles, because he says, everyone coming out of Stanford has such high expectations. He's like, one thing that made us amazing is we had such low expectations. So it was such a garage thinking, such the beginner's mind, so zen. I love, I don't like to idolize any sort of billionaires, but when I hear what he's saying, I think it's such timeless principles, because there's nothing worse you can do on anyone with, whether gifted children, when you label them as so perfect that they can't fail, versus fail first and all that. And so I imagine somewhere unraveling your quantum thinking, there's some sort of that mindset, that thing with that, developing the principles. But anyway, do you want to start getting into these principles?
Yeah, it's interesting because when I just I was thinking about some shortage of good tools for business, thinking tools for business. I learned in Harvard Business School, for example, I learned systematic inventive thinking. This is good for business, but not dedicated for business. It's specifically dedicated for hardware development or maybe software development, agile, all these type of thinking there are on the place, on the market. But something absent. We had a lack of, I would say, sweet spot thinking for the business. And I start to think about it. How can I improve? How can I accelerate my thinking? Because I wasn't born to like a very, very good thinker. I need some tools that guide me to think correctly and to solve the problem. I start using SIT, systematic inventive thinking, and I found that is lack of in many circumstances, it doesn't work. So I start to think. So I built some circle called conventional thinking. What is it, conventional thinking? It's something like emotional thinking, what we do every day without any intelligent about it, without any consciousness about it. So I start to learn consciousness, and now I'm in the board of European Consciousness University. We teach people neuroplasticity and what is it, consciousness, and how to manage it with respect to AI. Very interesting subject. Maybe we can talk about it. Maybe
and there's a lot of meditation that's involved with that.
It's not meditation. No,
okay.
not meditation. Not meditation at all. I'm not in this space. I'm not in mental health space. I'm a physicist. Again, back to the physicist. I like order. I like to put everything in order. I believe only in touchable things. So I start to think about what is conventional thinking. I don't like it because I'm not very good thinker, and I lose direction if I start to think conventionally. And I start to look at subconscious mind, and I start to read many professors, like, for example, you can find my interview of him, Professor Jerome Buzimer. He created theory of quantum decision making. So he says that our subconscious mind works like quantum mechanical system, because you don't know when you're thinking, you cannot consciously follow your thinking. You can have millions, trillions thinking ideas, and you cannot consciously decide about it unless you collapse, or until you collapse into a specific stage, and this stage gives result to your logical thinking, logical brain, and you decide. I decided, very good, but 1 minute before you go through infinite number of some superposition state of thinking without any decision, and something help you to decide. For example, you go to the shop, you don't know what to buy, and you are in superposition. I want to buy this, that, or maybe I don't buy anything. You have 1,000 variants in your head. You don't know about this. It's pure quantum mechanics. And then sales manager just approach you and say, okay, I think this blue t-shirt is very nice for you. Take it. Okay, it's observer. He probe you, and you immediately collapse. You think so? Okay, I'll take it. You immediately collapse to specific state. This is how our brain works. So this is called conventional thinking. Now we talk about concept-based thinking. For example, a concept actually is not a good thing, because concept, like a virus, it lives on your brain and manage your decision making. It gives you a lot of biases. For example, I don't like people in blue t-shirt. So if I see people in blue t-shirt, I don't like them, I don't want to hire them. So this is conceptual thinking, okay, and gives you bias. You can use it specifically if you know how to govern this, because you build some concept around your startup and you biased around this concept, it will help you. But in general life, it's just very worth think. For example, any religion is a concept, right? Big concept. There is a big concept, there is a small concept. Family is a small concept, religion is a big concept. Or egregor, people say. And there is a so-called overthinking. It's infinite, infinite circle, where, you overanalyze. You ask something to do, you say, oh, I don't have time. You overthink. Maybe you have time. So this is very, very much, people use it very much, very often. And there is a spot zone of thinking where you can be, where you can think consciously, where you can conscious about your biases and use it for the cause, where you're conscious about your overthinking, where you're conscious about your conventional thinking. It's somewhere between overthinking circle and concept-based thinking circle. So you have some very small zone of sweet spot of thinking. And this is where quantum business thinking lies. And so I decided that if I look at the quantum mechanical laws, like superposition, like complementarity, like tunneling effect, I understood, and I know came from quantum physics, and now I have experience in investment and entrepreneurship, and somehow everything aligned. And I understood that these quantum laws actually are laws of nature. And if you apply these laws to your thinking, you can think like nature. You will never lose. You always will be within this sweet spot of thinking. And this is how it happened. So, for example, we're talking about some linear growth of the company, right? But it never linear growth. It grows like this because, here you overthink you down, here you underthink you a little bit different direction. So you go like this. If you take, for example, exponential growth, it never goes like this. It goes again like this, here down. But if you think about quantum growth, it never like this. Why? Because what does it mean, quantum growth? It means you get to the some level, and you stop there. When you get to another level, you acquire new resources, you get to another level. And when you stay at some level, you can manage all business function. There are 5 business functions in the right way. For example, many companies who exponentially grow, they forgot about customer success. And what happens? They didn't build customer success. They grow very quickly. This stuff happens, as I remember, with HubSpot, for example. And churn rate becomes growing, could be 100% churn rate, because you cannot help startups. You cannot help them to manage your stuff. And so in quantum growth, you stop a little bit growing, without losing momentum, actually, and you start to build your customer success team to feed your growth potential. And you do this together. In this case, you never get 2 steps back and 1 step ahead and then 2 steps back. You grow in quantum way. So go to the level, make balance of your functions, get acquired new resources, get to another level. Okay, so this is quantum growth. And based on this, I built these 10, currently it's 10 quantum business principles. And if you don't have any questions about what we're talking about, we can continue to talk about these principles. But if you have any questions.
Yeah, I would like to talk about the customer success dealing with churn rate. I think that's fascinating. And I'll
Churn
tell you,
rate, not turn rate, churn rate.
yeah, churn rate.
Churn rate, yeah.
Churn. Oh, okay.
Yeah,
No.
churn rate.
Yeah, sorry. Churn rate. So one of the things that I'm interested with that, there you go, is that I have served many years sales, business development. And what I always have found frustrating in that role, because every company wants you in a role and a title, and how they have, and maybe this is touched on with your principles, but it seems like, anyone and everyone knows when you talk to someone like yourself about this, that your best customer, your best revenue is your current customer, is growing. It's the hardest customer to get is a new customer, And so sadly enough, when you come in with sales, I'm like, my first principle was like what you're kind of talking about, this customer success. Even though I'm supposed to go outward and get sales, do business development, I want to say, I want to know what's going on with your current business. Tell me about the last 3 years, what we've been doing, serving these clients. Can you tell me more about that? And it's almost like, I don't know what it is, but I don't want to say, but that it's universal, but there's such a desire to forget history and leverage that. Most of these organizations I've worked with, I don't know what it is. If it's a pain thing, I don't know if it's too much for people to open up their failure, or if it's like the lack of CEOs. Companies want that business development person to get on the inside of those things, because that's the real pain point, because they probably weren't even needed to be hired. But I have had so much resistance from senior leadership on delving into that to move forward. And all they want me to do is give them more leads, give them more. And it's like, are you kidding me?
Yeah, it's a very good point, because this is all about psychology. Just give me the archetype of CEO and entrepreneur. Who is this guy? Definitely it's not analytical guy, right? This guy usually ADHD guy who is looking for a new experience. This is what happened. This is what Steve Jobs was. This is what many entrepreneurs like Musk they are mostly guys who are looking for a new experience. So they basically want something new. They don't know how to maintain and keep what they have. And this is just embedded into their character. That's why they became entrepreneurs. Otherwise, they could work like analysts at some other company, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah,
so
when you talk about Elon Musk, he has the threshold for pain. I mean, who would go in a solar company, to space, to cars?
Exactly. It's a pure ADHD guy. Yeah.
Oh my gosh! But if he was, I mean, it's just. And then I will tell you, reading his book, which I'm fascinated, is there is some leveraging core competencies with the innovation, where I do think, I would at least hope that the SpaceX technology is, and the factory, the amount of rockets he's launched is definitely, I'm sure, the core competencies that he's leveraging at Tesla, as well as, with the factory, with whatever the Henry Ford, factory rate, and the optimization, the efficiencies. And so, which makes him, I mean, I am I know he's a very polarizing figure, but just in that self, it is blowing away. So I'll be quiet, because I'm sort of taking over what you were. Go ahead and let's go back to what you were talking about.
Yeah. So summarize, that happens with many companies in a high growing stage, because this growing is led by people with some executive problems. Okay, functioning functional executive problems. So that's okay. Now let's back to sweet spot and quantum business thinking. So, for example, let's think about complementarity. This is the first and most important quantum business thinking tool. So, when you leverage diverse perspective, okay. So you take, for example, two things, two companies, and two software, and you complement each other. So maybe separately they're not good for you, but together they're good for you. So when you start to think about specification, what you need, so you start to look for some complementary parts to create something that really you need from different parts, which separately do not have any value for you. So this is called complementarity. This comes from complementarity of quantum laws or particles behavior in quantum physics. Another very important principles comes from duality. Duality, it means when you have two different controversial characters. So each character you can have only with specific probe in specific environment. For example, particle can be particle and photon can be particle and can be wave, right? Depend on how you measure it. It's called duality. Example in a product for duality is a hybrid engine. It could be fuel-based engine, but not at the same time it's electrical agent. They cannot work together. Electrical agent become generator for this. So they do not work together. So people who designed this, they really was thinking in duality manner. Another very important is superposition. This is how actually, as I said, we think. We're thinking, we have superposition of many ideas. We cannot follow this by ourselves without psychologists. And what we see just the last result, some state where you landed. So this is superposition. In business, it's very important to consider superposition of many different realities, of many different outcomes. Because people usually, I want this outcome and I do everything to come to this goal. I build this goal. But if it doesn't happen, for example, you plan your evening with another 3 people, right? You invited 3 people. You plan your evening and you didn't think about anything. You prepared your food for 3 people. And these 3 people suddenly brought another 10. What are you going to do? Go to cry, to close the door and cry? You cannot sell your evening anymore. So, but if you thought about, okay, these guys, I do not rely on them. They can bring somebody else. I would buy 3 times more food, just in case. So this is superposition thinking, together many different outcomes. Or, for example, another principle is influence of action. So you should know exactly the ripple effect of any of your action. People don't think about it. They don't think about a ripple effect of action. And this connected to outcome. If you want an outcome, you should connect this outcome to specific action, and you can have the number of actions to get to this outcome you want. And you should consider ripple effect of these actions. This comes from, shredding your cat. Yeah, so it could be in this stage, that stage, and we don't know if observation happens. When observation happens, we have this result. Or perception influence. That's very important stuff. That not about action. That's about thinking. So people say, what you think, you are, right? And what you want, it's real. So this is all about perception influence. So you should think correctly. If you don't think correctly, you get to result and you surprise why I got to this result. But you was thinking about wrong result subconsciously. that didn't pay attention to this. That's perception of perception influence is very important. By the way, about perception, it's very interesting. It's very perception happen. Perception is an act of culture, right? And it happens when you're a kid in some environment, you're growing inside environment, you create a perception. You see that fire just make you problem. You're afraid fire, or you're afraid the dog could bite you. So it's a perception. So perception creates beliefs. Belief transform into the values. Values get transformed into the principles, and principles into the rules, how you behave, and this all transformed into your destiny. So in order to change your perception, you should go back through all these chain and to start from the beginning. That's very difficult. Nobody can do it, actually. But to understand that your perception really influence, but you have biases, that's very important. Another thing is uncertainty age. We all know Heisenberg uncertainty, right? So when you cannot measure at the same time, for example, time and location and pull, impulse, and something else. So it's a...
I think we'd have to Breaking Bad. We'd have to thank the show, that awful, that great show on Netflix, Breaking Bad. Heisenberg was his,
exactly.
Even though that was kind of a play on it, but he was the chemistry teacher that was doing it. I know it's from your point of view as a physicist, it's you can go way into the weeds on what it is, and other than I just know just a little bit.
So this is all about how to manage uncertainty. For example, normally, if you don't know something, you start to collect information. Yeah, as more information you collected, as less uncertainty, right? So this is how you manage uncertainty usually. First of all, you should say yourself, okay, it's uncertain. I don't know what strategy we'll have. I don't know. I don't know influence of action because it's uncertain. So I have to have more information. But there is a trick. If, for example, you are in an airplane and your agent just stop, when you will start to look for more information, you can take the manual. You will die already. So this is a case where you cannot use. So you are in a totally uncertain situation. You don't know if you can to switch on again engine or not. But if you start to gather more information, you definitely will die. You don't have a lot of time. So uncertainty age is very important to understand where you are at some point of your life or of your business and how to manage. Interdependency, for example, it's another principle, interdependency. That's really very important. What I'm doing, I map all stakeholders. This is how I start any thinking about any business. I map all stakeholders, and then I'm looking for interdependency between them. And always I am looking for something interesting that never told before, and I can leverage this interdependency for my team, for my company. But first I start from mapping all stakeholders, and then maybe change this interdependency, okay? So that's very important. Strategic minimalism that came from tunneling effect. By the way, interdependency came from entanglement effect, and strategic minimalism from effect of tunneling. And this is where, with low energy consumption, you can get a great quantum leap. You can go through the maintain, right, without any energy consumption. Same with the business. So try without any resources to make the business. This is garage. Garage, it's exactly strategic minimalism. garage startups. So
I have a question, Leon. I was watching a podcast the other day. Lenny has a really, I forget his last name, but I guess it's Rich Sky, and he has a podcast. He had a venture, a very successful Mike Maples Jr., and that had recently wrote a book, and I imagine there might be some similarity. This gentleman, I think, has been 20 years as a seed investor. Has success like investing in, I think, like Lyft and other ones. But what one point he was saying is that when he was doing a kind of a post-crash analysis, what was successful, the ones that he had to shut down. And I don't know I didn't get to listen to the whole thing. I marked it to listen to. But what was fascinating that he was saying that there were plenty of companies that hired right, that did the business canvas, all the things you were supposed to do, and he still had to shut them down. Whereas the ones that might have looked not the right in the beginning were the ones that were successful. So I don't know what he inserted those principles or what it was that he found. I believe there were certain things, but I would like you, if you could, using your principles and what you've seen, if you could maybe say a little bit what you found when from that question, if you could. I think that would be helpful to the audience.
Yeah, it's a very interesting question. First of all, maybe he shut down these companies because maybe he has some bias and they're not going in accordance with his understanding. Maybe he is expecting, all his companies in average grow 100 times per year, but this company just 10 times per year, and he doesn't like it, and he closes it. So it's again about average and his perception of how he has to manage his business. This is first. Second, why it happens. It could be great team, it could be great CEO, but maybe they don't use tools. They manage companies based on conventional thinking, and they don't use sweet spot thinking. For example, many companies come today for investment, to me, for example, and one of the first things I check, is the LinkedIn of the founder. I like brands. But the second thing I check is if this company is using some AI tools to improve productivity and operations. Because I don't want that for my money they start to they lose productivity because they don't use AI tools. Everybody else use, and this company doesn't. So maybe they don't have some tools to improve their operation. That's why maybe it's worth to close company. Another thing could be it's a market product fit. That's very important. It could be great company, great team, a lot of money, but actually they cannot sell product. Product not good. It's nice to have, not must to have. And today it should be must to have. So it should be tier 1, maximum tier 2 product, but not tier 3, tier 4. So maybe in the beginning it was like tier 1, like take Google glasses. People thought, wow, that's amazing, it's a must to have, and nobody did buy it. Mm-hmm. So it could be this reason. I don't know what is in mind of this guy who closed it, but there are a lot of reasons where this company is not aligned with his understanding how his company should work.
Yeah, I think what's interesting when you talked about like Google Glass too is coming to mind. Google Glass and Meta and Apple with their headsets and whatnot. It's these, like, Steve Jobs was amazing, masterful at marketing and getting people to do or use things that would have never been used, and stitching all these products and that are already invented. Like the fact that, and maybe I'm wrong, correct me, but when I read the book by the same gentleman who wrote, Walter Isaacson, that wrote Elon Musk, wrote Steve Jobs, and as best as I remember reading that book, Steve Jobs was such a master at going in and selling to, I think it was the Bell Lab, all his whatever Apple as what it was in the future, but was able to come away with all their graphic interface, the mouse, and here this guy was able to get them to invest in his company. Meanwhile, giving him, I mean, that is this charisma and marketing genius. But my point that I'm getting to with Zuckerberg trying to push these headsets and Apple, it seems that there's such a limited market for that, and I think they underestimated how sick those things can make you. I don't know. It just as much as you push something, I think that seems to be if they could have tweaked it or made it less robust. It seems like gamers use it, but not everyone. I don't know why that failed, but it seemed like there is a lot of problem when you put those headsets on with the motion sickness and other things. And I know this isn't a product talk, but I'll just stop.
I think they're not idiots, actually. They understand this and they understood this, and all analysis just revealed this. I think it's a point of to be on the market in any case, and they have money, and they could start even before market is created, and they could create. They think they can create the market, so they can make it better and better, and finally market will be created. I think they are right, and just a little bit early to get to the market, but they have money and they have intention to continue and to keep this market growing, and they believe that at some point all their activity will be paid off. So I think they move. This is what moves them.
So I guess what it really is, it's about first movers, and when you have that amount of money, they know that this is the phone. At some point, where will that phone leave to something else? I mean, is that kind of what you would say if you're that big of whether?
Yes, exactly. At some point, it will start pay off.
Yeah, gotcha. That's pretty fast, and that's what you were doing. I mean, you created a medical device. Who would ever thought this bone was the best place because of the materials? And prior to that, gosh, they were probably sticking it up your nose or doing it on your wrist or whatever around your heart, right? The strap,
right.
And you came in and totally disrupted it. So I don't want to get sidetracked. We still got a good bit, about 12 minutes till we finish. I love this conversation. I feel like you really are a sage in many ways. I think of it like the Socrates or whoever, back in the day, the Greek or Romans, where they would go and they would, walk around, I guess is how they learned with I mean, that's how I see you advising and working as a VC startup advisor, really instilling these lessons and principles. Do you see yourself in the next 7 years, like raising more funds and really leading a unique niche? Is it going to be a seed venture fund? Tell me where you see Leon in the next 7 years.
Very good question, because when I was released from my company, I tried everything, as you see. I was very interesting because for 10 years I was focusing on only one stuff. It's quite difficult for me. But I was focusing because it's startup. You cannot do many things at the same time. And now it's just like a spring, just released. So I start this, I start that. I try to understand what I like the most. And I can tell you, today I understand. I like the most to help startups. So I built so-called venture growth group, and we start to help startups. So I have quantum business thinking methodology. I built so-called moves methodology of how all elements of startup functioning. And I see myself in 5-7 years like a good brand of educational brand for startup founders. This is what I like the most. I like to teach. I like to share. I like to learn. And much more than to be entrepreneur or investor or something else.
Well, it's a different phase of your life. You're at a different season where you're leveraging everything, your brain capacity, your neurons, you're experiencing. So, of course, there are some serial entrepreneurs that just go from one thing to the next. But I think that's so great that there's so many entrepreneurs out there that need that guide, that help, that advisor. It's like the portfolio from what do you do with IP? What's the best way to raise? Should we bootstrap? How
How
long?
to get FDA clearance? That's
Oh
very
yeah,
important.
just
Yeah.
just along that. How do how do we get our first three customers? Are these the first three customers that we really want? What marketplace? Healthcare. Okay, well, what healthcare is a big thing. Do we want to do life science? Is that healthcare? Do we want to do biotech? Do we want to partner, or do we want to? What would that be? That strategic investor? Okay, if it's pharma or life science, do we want J&J? Are they going to steal us? It's like maybe we don't want
Right.
to. I mean, you have all that, I guess, scar tissue, all those experiences. So
Yeah.
I
This
just,
is what
anyway,
I
I'll
do.
stop.
This is what I do, actually. Yeah, right. And quantum business thinking helped me because what you mentioned now, all the list is all about thinking. So thinking, I call it think, create, and grow. Without thinking, you cannot do anything. You do everything wrong and you lose. And this guy will close your company. So it's better to start from thinking.
Yeah.
And this is what I teach people how to
So,
think.
so are you going to any conferences? Is 2024 is kind of coming towards we're halfway closer to
Yeah,
the
yeah,
end of.
sure, sure, yeah.
Okay, so you'll be at Vive in Nashville. It's going to be in
Hmm.
February. That'll be 2025. How about Health in October?
Yeah, I'm going to be here in the hymns.
And
I'm going to be
HIMSS.
there in
Okay,
hymns.
cool.
Yeah,
And I
yeah,
hope
I
I
like these
hope I
conferences.
hope you'll be able to speak. It seems like you'd be a great speaker, speaking on a panel or something with startups. Or
I think so. I hope I will be invited. So
well,
we'll
I will
see.
I will be at those conferences. I definitely have Vive. I'm already at Health. I'm working on that. I'll be at Vive. I love the fact that it's at Nashville. I have a cousin,
Uh, my
a new, yeah,
favorite place. Yeah.
and even more so with what's his name? What's his name? That sounds so informal. But the CEO of Oracle Health is relocated to Nashville, right?
Wow. I don't
Yeah,
know. I didn't
yeah.
hear.
Larry Ellison, and
Ah.
I think that's smart when you think about it because they are health capital of the world, and I believe there's probably multiple reasons of doing that. I hate to say it, nothing against California, but there's a lot of companies, sadly enough, that have left for just one thing. It's called that carried interest, the lack. It's just they just tax people out of the city, and and then also I think there can be a talent. It's hard to live there. The problem is it's so expensive. So I think multiple reasons it would make sense. And forgive me, all these are my own opinion. Well, not my anyway. I don't mean to, please correct me if I'm wrong. I always put a disclaimer now. The views of the participants aren't necessarily the participants' own, nor the host or the podcast. And if I'm wrong, please correct
Hmm.
me.
Okay. These big guys, they can choose everything what they want, but actually it doesn't have a lot of ripple around it. Still, if you take a look on this year Silicon Valley report, still it's 5 times a gap between Silicon Valley in venture capital with the next in line it's New York or Boston.
Mm-hmm.
So still it's growing, still people like Silicon Valley because it's access to capital is much better there than
Mm-hmm.
everywhere else. And so you can be the first guy in a village, but
Yeah.
what is it to be first guy in the village or last guy in the big city? I
Mm-hmm.
prefer the last guy in big city, and because I have a lot of opportunity to grow in big city, but
Mm-hmm.
if I'm the first guy in the village, I don't have any opportunities anymore. So that's why Silicon Valley is still in place.
Yeah. And you bring up a good point. At this point with Oracle Health, like Larry Ellison is so big. It's not a startup. Oracle Health, so I don't think they're challenged with that. In fact, they're at a different level. So I think,
maybe he likes a good bar there. Who knows? How did he decide?
His granddaughter lives in Nashville. I mean, really, it's probably a little bit of a few of those things. He probably likes a few things like that. You're absolutely right. A good bar probably is, or he's dating a country western singer, probably. It's really funny. There's a few of those things. But what else? What should we do as we're finishing up in our last few minutes?
First of all, thank you very much, Mike, for this amazing conversation. I hope this is first but not last conversation.
Yeah.
I hope to meet you in October in HIMSS, and I think your audience will be happy to hear something new they didn't hear before, and something that out of this conventional scope of your thinking and your podcast. So I hope if they have any interest, want to learn more, they can go to my website. It's leoneisen.com. They can find me in LinkedIn. I'm open to conversation. They can book meeting with me and learn from me just for free. So welcome.
Yeah, no, this is awesome. And I see the lighthouse on the back, that picture. I think it's a lighthouse. You're a beacon on the hill. Your light shines with your startup insight. So I think that's I don't know all the symbolism, but I'll take that as that. And what will be good is after this, I take this and create a newsletter, the YouTube clip. It will be on my Substack. And then if you want to share with me, I have your website, like you said, but if there's any appropriate articles, any other insights to you and what you're doing appropriate to your quantum business thinking, please do.
Will do, sure.
Yeah, I'm only as good as our guest and as much as I share. And I really appreciate you coming on, because I am continuing. We are Planetary Health First, Mars Next. That is a mouthful, but we are really very focused on healthcare, but we're trying to create multiple ecosystems. And one thing, you being is in Israel, that's a huge tech community, everything. And we all need to work together to create more vibrant communities. So I would like to invite you to connect with you in person. I will be at Planetary Health First, Mars Next will be at Health. We'll be at Vive, and we'll be looking at some other conferences, and we will be broadcasting there. So we'll have to talk more about that. And until next time, Leon, this is awesome.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It's great to meet you here. Thank you. Thanks for the invitation. Bye. Hi.